Welcome to the Mornings with Matt Career Podcast. Today we're joined by Jake Richings from England. Jake is a partner at a social impact incubator called EthosVO. He's also a keynote speaker and content creator focused on supporting young people in their careers. Having spoken across the UK at universities, charities, and corporations, Jake joins us today to share his journey to finding career fulfillment, along with quick, cheap, and easy actions you can take to help you find a career that you love or start your own business. If you like what you hear today and want to learn more, check out our website at morningswithmattp.com. Follow us on Instagram and TikTok at morningswithmattp, or follow me, Matt Parkin, on LinkedIn. Thanks for joining us today, Jake.
Hey, Matt. Yeah, thank you for having me.
Looking forward to our conversation. So to start us off, can you walk us through your journey after you left school? You finished up and you were unemployed. So would love to kind of hear about what that journey looked like.
Yeah, so I suppose the main step that led me towards what I'm doing now is the fact that when I left school, I had no idea what I wanted to do. So I remember very clearly seeing all of my friends knowing what they wanted to do. They were going off to university or college or getting a job, and they could tell me exactly what they wanted to do in 5 years or 10 years. I had no idea. Not only did I not know what I wanted to do in my career, but also in my life in general. And it felt like no one was really able to support me with that. So I became what we call in the UK NEET, which is an acronym for not in education, not in employment, not in training, which basically means like I sort of fell off the bandwagon. And I remember for probably about 8 months or so, I was looking for work, but there was nothing that looked interesting. I didn't know what I was good at. I didn't know what I enjoyed. And so every job was like, I don't want to do that, or that seems boring. And the ones I did apply for, I didn't get because my CV wasn't very good. So I was very fortunate that a friend of mine worked as a waitress, and she said, we're always looking for waiters. It wasn't what I wanted to do, but I started there, didn't enjoy that, and moved on to a door-to-door sales company, which I didn't enjoy, but still didn't know what I'd rather be doing. And it wasn't until I got my first kind of break, I suppose, which was just in my early 20s or maybe just a bit before then, working in a customer service team, when I started to get a lot of opportunities to progress. And I still knew, Matt, that I was like, this isn't what I want to do, but I need to progress and learn some skills. But I didn't know what I'd rather be doing. I was still stuck with that feeling of like, what is my thing? What would I rather be doing than this? Over the course of a couple of years, I'd progressed quite quickly to the point where I was able to travel around Europe with my work, speaking to company executives about things like company culture. And I remember my mate saying that I was successful. And I found that so weird because like I still didn't know what I wanted to be doing. And I still wasn't like happy at work. So I suppose the first sort of like big thing in my life was I didn't know what I wanted to do for a long period of time, but I was still able to progress. And I realized that that sort of progression didn't lead to me being any happier. I was still having that same talk in my head of like, oh, I'll be happier once I earn more money, or I'll be happier once I get the next promotion. And the truth was that I'd been unhappy in my career for the whole career. I think largely due to just not knowing what I was good at, what I wanted to do, and what I'd rather be doing with most of my time.
And with that journey, like how did you end up finding career fulfillment? Like I assume, are you still looking for that, or have you found that now, or where are you at in that journey?
Yeah, I feel very fulfilled with my work now. So in my work now, I get to work with a lot of young people that are in some cases on the same path I was on, unhappy with their work or wanting to do something valuable. And I get to share my own story and like what helped. But yeah, I do think I'm fulfilled now, but I also don't think it's the end of the journey. This isn't like I've made it to the destination, let's stop there. So I had a role where I left the role I was in and I had a role that was a 9-month contract. And I was still thinking, this isn't what I want to do. I don't have any qualifications that will help me do anything else. I don't have any skills that will help me do anything aside from customer service. But I can't remember why, but there was one question I asked myself for the first time. I'd always said, what do I want to do? but I'd never asked myself, how do I work out what I want to do? And when I asked that question, it almost like gave me permission to be like, oh, is this something I can work out? Like, you're not just born knowing what your thing is or not. Like, it's actually something you could do to work it out. Problem was, I didn't know what those steps were. You and I joked beforehand, like I did some online personality quizzes and they told me I was an octopus. So that's a difficult career to have. But I was like, okay, well, if this is something I can work out, how would I go about doing that? And how would I do that like quickly as well? Is there like quick, cheap and easy things I can do that will help? So rather than thinking like, how can I work out my dream career in 40 years time? Is it something I can do? Is there something I can do today to help me? And there ended up being 3 things that were really, really useful. So during this 9-month contract, I started trying things that I was like kind of interested in. So not things I was like, yeah, that's what I want to do. It's like, maybe I'd be interested in a job in game design. That might be fun. Okay, how can I do that? Well, I could probably learn on YouTube to make a game. And in a couple of months, I'd made a game just from like stuff on YouTube. And I did that with so many things that I was interested in. I coached an esports team. I coached a youth football team. I made a board game. I made an app. I started speaking to teachers about their careers, volunteering at a school, all this stuff that I was like, maybe being a teacher might be fun, but I don't want to go to university for 4 years to study being a teacher. I just want to know, like, is that my thing? And so the first thing that was really useful was like actually trying stuff that I was kind of interested in, which never led me to say, oh, yes, I want to be a teacher, or yes, I want to be a game designer. But actually the second thing that I can look back on now and is almost like, what was the essence of why I liked that? You know, why did I like coaching a football team when some other people don't? And when some people like it for the strategy, some people like it for the teamwork, I liked it for the motivation and like doing team talks. Or when I was making a video game, you know, I didn't love it because of the coding side of it or because of the designing. Actually, I just loved working on my own, being creative when I wanted to, with a little bit of structure. And so those are the things that I've kind of like carried forward into my career now. So like I get to motivate young people. I get to be creative, but also autonomous. The reason I like volunteering at school was helping young people. It wasn't to do with the curriculum or anything like that. So those are like the essences that I carry forward now into my work that I find fulfilling. And I think will probably keep me going a long way. And the third thing was sort of the recognition that this isn't like a solo event. It isn't like one man on his solo mission to find work he loves. Loads of people helped me with that. The conversations I had with, neighbors that were teachers or people my family knew that happened to do a job that I was kind of interested in, or meeting people like yourself on LinkedIn. Those conversations actually were so valuable to like helping me find out what I didn't know. A Google search can tell you only so much about a job. If I actually speak to someone that is a corporate trainer, guess how much I'm going to learn. So those 3 things that I did over quite a short space of time are now the things that I continue to do day after day, week after week. They're like the quick, cheap and easy steps that you could take this evening. Like you could start something you're interested in, or you could speak to your family and parents. Like, do we know anyone that works in finance? They might do. And once it became those like day-to-day steps, it became a lot easier to find my own path and like follow what was interesting.
I love that you said that, the emphasis on learning by doing and going out and trying your own thing or volunteering to see if you liked something. Couple years ago, I was interested in the consulting space, right? And it's a very competitive space to break into in terms of getting a job. So I was like, if I'm going to go through this recruiting process, I want to make sure it's something that I'm actually going to enjoy. And so I did just that. Like I started reaching out to nonprofits and small businesses and startups and did some consulting work for them, And I think that was a great opportunity where I was like, okay, yes, this is actually something I enjoy doing. And oftentimes I feel like people don't realize that they can do that. You don't need to wait for a company to give you permission to do that work. You can create your own opportunities. And I think you embody that very well in terms of that, like game design, making a board game, like all of those different things that you did. I think they were definitely very helpful for you in your journey, and I think other people will take a lot of helpfulness away from that.
Yeah, no, thank you. And one of the things that sort of embodies that in some way, I had a comment on my TikTok a while ago. Someone said, how do I get a career being an astronaut? And to me, I was like, well, if that's the high level thing, what is something you could do today or this week to take you a little bit closer? Because, it's going to be difficult to volunteer at NASA or SpaceX. But one thing you could do, I mean, this might not be the same where you're in Canada, but in the UK, we have something called Air Cadets, which is like a club every week where they do things to do with flight, and eventually you learn to fly, but it also involves, it's like a link up to the RAF. Now, every astronaut needs to have 2 years of a pilot's license. So the one thing you could do as a 14-year-old is to join Air Cadets, see if you like it, see if you enjoy it. Because if you like that, that takes you the next step closer. And if you don't enjoy it, then hey, you haven't spent your whole life being dedicated to being an astronaut that you don't like. So yeah, always thinking of those like, okay, what could I do today or this evening, rather than thinking, oh, I have to spend the next 4 years of my life doing this.
That's a really great practical example of how to break things down. I don't think I would have thought of that as as a step to break into being an astronaut. So that's very helpful for people, and hopefully they can use a similar kind of path to break into whatever field they're looking at going into. Um, changing gears a little bit. So we've talked a little bit about finding fulfillment in your career. What if we have people who, maybe they have some fulfillment in their career, but they're still very stressed or they're anxious at work. Work's very heavy. They enjoy doing it, but, maybe it's taken away from their social life, or maybe they don't enjoy doing it, but they need the money and so they need to stay and they can't afford to go elsewhere. Do you have any tips for them in terms of how they can reduce stress in their current roles?
Yeah, so this is one thing that's really like quite personal for me. So one of the reasons I left my previous career was, even though I was getting progression and some of my friends were calling me successful, I was really struggling with stress and anxiety. It got so bad that I would start waking up in the morning blind, just because of stress. And being blind is not very useful if you've got to answer emails. So it was at that point I was like, okay, so something needs to change, but I don't really know what it is. Obviously, there's going to be stress involved in your career. Even if you love your career, there are some days that are more stressful. And burnout is always a factor in any career, even though for some it can be faster. There's one practical thing that I'll give, which is like, again, something you could do today, which will help. But I suppose I want to preface that by saying, like, the things I share, always the advice I share is stuff that like I've done and tested, because I wouldn't want to give advice that's like, oh, I read in a book somewhere, but I've not tried it, but so give that a go. Everything I share is like stuff I've done that was helpful for me. So I pass on saying, hey, maybe this will be helpful for you as well. So yeah, that thing, one of the things I found really, really useful, especially when you're in something that you can't like leave immediately, or like if you're looking for a different job, you can't just straight up say, okay, I've left and now I do something else. Just to fill in that little gap while you're like waiting to change, or maybe you're waiting for something else, was giving yourself a fun reason to start the day. The challenge I had was that I'd wake up at 6:30, I might grab a bite to eat for breakfast, and then I would be on the road to work. My day always started because of work. That was why I woke up, work. And when you're like struggling with work, or when you're anxious about work, that's what happens when you wake up. Your brain says, uh-oh, here we go again, which is something like very negative. One of the things I found, which was like just a real small change, was that instead of doing the fun things I do all through the evening, I just sort of like trimmed 1 hour off my evening and put it in the morning of the next day. So for me, one of the things I really enjoy is video games. So instead of gaming until like 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock, stop that an hour early and wake up and do that thing. And I'd be so excited to do that in the morning. And I know it might sound really weird because it's like, it's just moving things around. But my brain then was saying like, oh, I'm honestly like really excited to wake up for this in the morning. And I remember just like, the personal example is like, I really like F1, which I know is big over your side of the pond now. But every morning, maybe about like 6 o'clock or like 5:30, I would wake up and I would do a Grand Prix on my steering wheel. And honestly, that was just so much fun. that like when it came around to like 7 o'clock and I was like, oh, I better head off to work. One, I'm already in a better mood. But two, it's just like, it's part of my day. You know, like eating is part of my day. It's not the reason for my day. It's just part of my day. And I found that that was something that really helped to like put me in a good state of mind, and make things a little bit better. It's not the cure all for stress. And I'm not saying that if you wake up an hour early and do something fun, you'll never burn out. But I found that to be a really nice like placeholder whilst I was just about to shift my career, and do something different. It's like, have a fun reason to start the day. If your work is your reason for your day, it's like setting yourself up for failure in many ways. So yeah, I challenge people to say, you know, what's your fun thing? Is it reading? Is it painting? Is it going for a run? Some people like doing that, I think. And how could you start your day with that?
I love that. I might have to take you up on that piece of advice. It's funny, some days I'm springing out of bed ready to go, and there's other days where I'm snoozing that alarm multiple times and, dreading getting out of bed. So I think that'll be helpful for myself as well as our listeners to kind of reflect on, what's something I can do in the morning that, maybe isn't one of those typical, billionaire 5 a.m. routine kind of things, but playing video games, watching an F1 race, going for a walk with a friend, grabbing, I don't know, maybe you have a little spoon of ice cream in the morning, whatever floats your boat, right? But giving you
Yeah,
something, some good, exciting reasons to wake up in the
that's the
morning, I
thing. Yeah,
think. I
and
love
for
that.
some days for me, that was like just having my favorite breakfast. Like again, just looking forward to getting downstairs and getting sausages out. Like, oh yeah. So yeah, I mean, I'll ask you, what do you think your thing would do? Your thing would be exciting thing to start in the morning. Would it be ice cream?
That was just something I pulled off the top of my head. Probably not. I'd prefer to end my day with ice cream than to to start the day with ice cream. But I found this is something I did last summer, and it's kind of just fallen off the charts. I haven't really done it much this year. Was going for a walk before work in the morning and calling a friend. So I would call a different friend each morning, and I would go for a 20-minute walk, and we would just catch up. And it was nice, given that we went to school together, and then we went back home to different towns during the summer. And that was a nice way to get some exercise so that I was actually awake by the time I went to sit at my desk and do work. And it was a nice way to reconnect with friends and kind of, have some laughs early on in the morning at, 7, 8 o'clock kind of thing. So, yeah, maybe that'll be something that I bring back into my routine, because I definitely miss that.
Yeah, and that sounds lovely as well. Not only for like something you can do, it's also something you've got the accountability for with a friend that will then be valuable for them in the mornings as well. You just say once a week, let's catch up. How you doing?
That accountability piece is big too, because then you can't snooze your alarm. You're like, someone is calling me in 5 minutes. I need to get up and, and get my shoes on and go.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. So last thing I wanted to ask you about today, you do a bit of work in the social impact space. And for people who are either unfamiliar with the space or haven't previously considered working in the social impact space, do you have any advice for them in terms of learning more about the space, exploring some of those interests? Any quick, cheap and easy actions they can take to break into the space?
Yeah, I found it to be a really interesting space because, again, when I left school, this wasn't something that I thought I would do. As young people, we see a lot about like the challenges that are facing the world, and often it feels like our work can't make a difference. Like it's just too small. Um, but I suppose one of the reasons that I got started here was because I was trying to help people that had had the same challenges as me at the start of their career, which naturally led me towards the work I do now with EthosVO and helping young people that have the same thing or starting their own business. And I find that the framework of people, path, purpose is really, really useful for people getting started. So you might be able to see it just in the back of my screen, just below my lamp. People listening won't, but it's a small blue book where I put ideas. Most of those ideas are trash, right? But sometimes there's an idea that warrants me doing something with it. And that quick, cheap, and easy step could be something to do with people. Who could I speak to about this? Who do I know, or who might know someone that I know? Who could I connect with on LinkedIn? Who might know someone on social media? Who do I know that could be local to me, that do things that are close or kind of close? Once you turn that idea into a conversation, it becomes easier for it to grow again. The second one is about path, those quick, cheap and easy things we could do, which might be, okay, I'm going to start an Instagram account and just start posting about these things, or a TikTok account. It could be joining a local club or doing some work experience or an internship. Those things where you're like, how can I turn this idea into something that's going to give me skills and experience? And the last one is about purpose. And I think this one's really important because purpose can often feel like quite high and mighty. It's like, my purpose is to save the world. And in many cases, it doesn't have to be that. And for me in the social impact space, I try not to have these like really high purposes, because it just gets a little bit loose and a little bit fluffy. Like, oh, my purpose is to solve climate change. Like, that's really difficult. Lots of people are working on it, but like, what's a small thing I could do? And so one of the projects we're working on is rewilding, which means take like a river in a city, for example. How can we rewild that to get more wildlife there? Something that's like quite small. So when it comes to purpose, it's about thinking of the essence of why you've enjoyed what you've enjoyed in the past. Because sure, I'd like to help with climate change, but what is my thing that's actually going to allow me to bring the best out of myself? That might not be, I don't know, inventing a tech startup that's good for climate change. That might not be my thing. It still helps that purpose, but it's not my thing. And so when I look back on all the stuff I've enjoyed in the past, I gave you the example of like coaching a football team because I love motivation, or working at school because I love helping young people. That's my thing. Like, that's what I'm good at, and that's what I enjoy doing. The purpose of that can be somewhat to do with social impact, but as long as the how, as long as what I'm doing involves motivation and young people, that's how I'm going to serve that. So for purpose and people interested in like the social impact space, you can look back at hobbies you've enjoyed or subjects or work you've enjoyed in the past and think, okay, what's special about me there, and how can I bring that to the social impact space, rather than just the purpose of, okay, I'd like to help social justice, or I'd like to help climate change, or while rewilding, those things.
And I think that people, path, purpose framework, or steps, if you will, are applicable outside of the social impact space too, right? I was writing those three words down as you were speaking, because I didn't want to forget them for later, because even myself, I've been rethinking kind of how I'm spending my time and what my priorities are in life. And I think those pieces will really help narrow it down from, hey, I enjoy helping others too, okay, I could help others through these 10 things, like which do I want to focus on, and what's going to bring me the most joy and the most impact. So really appreciate those thoughts, Jake. And thank you again for joining us on this conversation. Hopefully everyone listening found it helpful. We'd love if you can rate it and share it with a friend if you did. And if you want to learn more, check out our website, morningswithmattp.com. Follow us on Instagram and TikTok at Mornings with Matt P, or follow me, Matt Parkin, on LinkedIn. We'll see you next week.